Welcome, everybody, to our last session of the year. We're so happy you could be here tonight, and you should all be here for Living Rituals. And before we get started, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Jennifer Arvisu, and I'm the Operations Manager with Roots and Roads. And before we get started, I'm going to just go over our Zoom controls with you all. So as you'll notice right now, you are all muted and you'll remain muted until a little bit later this evening. If you didn't, I put it in the chat earlier, but if you didn't see, we will have a short little writing or drawing exercise. And so it would be really good if you could have a piece of paper and a pencil or pen handy with you. So if you don't want to see me go over Zoom controls because it's all packed for you, you can set up and have those things now. Um, but so you're all muted. You'll remain so till a little bit later. You do have access to your camera, so you can start and stop your video as needed. If you have any questions, the chat icon down at the bottom of your screen, you can put in any questions for me if you're having any issues with Zoom, or if you have any questions that pop up that you want to ask the presenters, you can go ahead and put those in the chat and then we can get to them a little bit later. And then up at the top right-hand corner is the view icon. That's going to be where you'll be able to toggle between speaker view if you'd like to focus on whoever is speaking, or you can keep it in gallery view so you can see who's all in the room with us. We also do have our reactions icon available now, so you can clap, you can share little hearts, and also raise your hand if you have any questions. But again, we are trying to wait to hold questions till a little bit more towards the end of the session. So make sure and put those in the chat so you don't forget. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Julia, our Executive Director.
Howdy, everybody. So great to see you all. And as Jen said, this is the last of our 2025 series. And then we'll kick off with a new series come January. But we're so glad to see you tonight. And Jen, do you mind forwarding? There we go. Yay. So for those of you who don't know, we are celebrating our 25th year of existence in the Tucson community. And we serve, obviously, we assist financially low-income hospice patients in southeastern Arizona. So it's not just Tucson. We also serve Cochise, parts of Pinal, and Santa Cruz counties. So that's the provide part of this slide. And then we do what we're doing tonight, where we come together to learn about end of life issues, including grief and ways to journey through our grief. And then if you've never checked out our online resource called the Crosswalk, it's we tried to pull together information in one spot so that folks who are faced with a diagnosis of serious illness, all the way through choosing palliative care or how's that different from hospice, all the way to final arrangements and bereavement, that everything's in one place. So patients and families and even healthcare providers aren't trying to scramble around and find resources that invite you to visit that if you have not yet. Thanks, Jen. Next page. So big shout out to those of you who support, and I know many of you support our education series every month, and we're so grateful to you. You make it possible. There, of course, fees associated with the Zoom platform, and sometimes we do honorariums for speakers, things like that. So it really does make such a huge difference. You allow us to keep this free and open to anybody, not just in our community. We have people tune in from across the nation and even around the world. So very, very thankful for you making that possible. And with that, I will turn it over to David.
Evening, everybody. We also want to just take a moment right now to thank our sponsors for this whole year. You can see listed here in front of you, we have Desert Diamond Casino, Casa de la Luz Hospice, Sunset Hospice, Intermountain Centers, and the Legacy Foundation of Southeast Arizona. And tonight we have a special thank you to Right at Home in-home care and assistance. They are sponsoring this event tonight, and they've been amazing partners with us for many years. Karen Kochar is with us tonight. She is the owner and operator of Right at Home in-home care and assistance here in Tucson. Karen and Right at Home, like I said, have been partnering with us for quite some time, many years, and we have been trying to find creative ways to continue to serve the community in creative ways, responding to exactly what questions and issues are arising for folks. Karen leads Right at Home with compassion and with a deep understanding of the needs of our aging community. She is someone I've turned to for resources and guidance, and she's a gift to our whole community. We're so grateful to have her with us. Karen, I was wondering if you would like to tell us a little bit about Right at Home, if you would like to share anything.
Oh, sure. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here and be with this group. I really appreciate the educational piece of this and the community part of this, and I'm happy to be here. But Right at Home, we are an in-home care company, and we do anything to help you in your home, wherever home is. It can be your own house, it could be assisted living, it could be on a hospice at the end of life. And any place that happens, we're happy to help if that's appropriate. We do anything from light housekeeping to companion care and supervision for Alzheimer's, as well as meal preparation and transportation. If you just need a ride to get where you need to go, we'll do that. And then we move on to hands-on care. So we have the same resources that work at assisted living and work in your hospitals, help bathing and dressing. And we do that one-on-one with you wherever you are. So and I guess the most important thing to know about us is we do it because we want to, and we do it because we care, and we will customize your experience with us so that if you need 1 hour and that's all you need, we're happy to do that. And if you need 24 hours, we'll do that. So really you can ebb and flow and grow and also graduate from us. We have people who graduate off of us, and that's really exciting to see too. So we do a free consultation. So if you have any questions or we can be of any help, we're happy to, talk to you and get you to the right place if we're not it, and share our ideas with you. So thank you again. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks so much, Karen. Appreciate that. And if you want to go to the next slide, Jennifer. We also are grateful to have Chandel Beck with us again tonight. She has participated in previous years' sessions. I've consulted with Chandel many times over the years. She has a deep understanding of and respect for each person's and each community's grief journey. Chandel companions people in their sacred sorrow and helps us all navigate our grief through many perspectives, including creative expression and ritual. The combination of her education and training and experience is a unique resource for our whole community. So thank you both for helping us tonight in this conversation. And we really hope that it will be a conversation that we share together. And now I'll invite Karen to begin with a poem.
Thank you so much. I invite you to open your hands and lift your palms up to receive this information if you're comfortable with that. Let us begin. For When We Greet Each Other by Rosemary. I want a new ritual for when we meet each other, strangers or beloveds, friends or rivals, elders or children. It begins by holding each other's eyes, the way we behold sunrises or the first cherry blossoms, which is to say, we assume we'll find beauty there, and perhaps some display of open hands, a gesture up, a gesture with palms up that suggests both I offer myself to you and I receive you. There should be a quiet moment in which we hear each other breathe, knowing it's the sound of the ocean inside us. If there are words at all, let them be formed, mostly of vowels, so they're heard more as a song than as spitting, or more like a river current and less like throwing stones. Words that mean something, like, I do not know what you carry, but in this moment, I will help you carry it. Or something like, everything depends upon us treating each other well. And if we said it enough, perhaps we'd believe it. And if we believed it enough, perhaps we'd live it. Treating every other human like someone who holds our very existence in their hands, like someone whose life has been given us to serve, even if it's only to walk together safely down the street, hold a door, pass the salt, share a sunset, offer a smile, and say with our actions, you belong.
Thanks so much, Karen. Really appreciate that. And I think that we'll invite Chandel to begin and as we enter into this space together.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, David, and thank you for the introductions. It's great to be here with you all. I just want to touch briefly, David, do we want to invite everybody to write briefly before I begin speaking about ritual?
Yeah, maybe. And we thought about reminding everybody to have something to write with at the beginning of the session. Do people have things with them that they could write on a scratch paper, and hopefully not the wall next to you? But if you don't, it's okay. You can just spend the time reflecting quietly as well. Does that sound okay, Shanda?
I think so. Yeah, sitting with and reflecting on what ritual means to you. I'll dive into just the conceptualization of ritual. I recently completed Francis Weller's grief ritual leadership training, and we'll expand a little bit on what I learned. But we thought before inviting more conversation surrounding ritual, sitting with what does ritual mean? As we reflect on that, what does ritual mean to you? So we'll give you just a few minutes to sit with what does ritual mean to you? And then I'll guide us into our conversation for the evening. I just took a sip of my tea and I realized that was one of my rituals today, before stepping into this conversation and making sure I had everything about me that I needed so I could cross this threshold and have this conversation with you. When David first asked me to be a part of this discussion, I started to reflect on my own definition of ritual, which was the description for tonight's event being ritual is an alchemizing blend of acknowledgement, remembrance, and expression. It acts to honor not only was, but is, sometimes looking to ancient practices, often leaning into intuition, and always incorporating sacred intent. I considered how we might all give a different answer for what ritual means to us, which is why we invited you to reflect on what it means to you. And aside from what I'll share from Francis Weller's grief ritual training, I recently completed, along with a fantastic group of local healers, I wanted to share some definitions I came across from those in various professions. This from Esther Perel, who is a Belgian psychotherapist known for her work in relationship therapy. She says, a ritual is a routine elevated by creativity, driven by intention, and imbued with meaning. As I sit with her definition, I think if I were to rewrite mine, that it would definitely, I'd bring in the word creativity. Dr. Rebecca Lester, an anthropologist, wrote, one of the most important features of rituals is that they do not only mark time, they create time. By defining beginnings and ends to developmental or social phases, rituals structure our social worlds and how we understand time, relationships, and change. And this was taken from a Psychology Today article where Dr. Lester spoke of the study of social rituals, particularly rites of passage. And she was looking at what happened during the pandemic, the ways where people really dug deep to honor what was still occurring. People were still graduating, and everything looked so different. And people were digging deep to honor these momentous occasions, joyous occasions, and grievous occasions. We remember memorial services being conducted on Zoom and how these rites of passage can still be honored during these times. What can perhaps be taken from these and other definitions, and maybe your own, is that ritual is alive. That's what David and I have been reflecting on, just the aliveness within this space. Ritual can take an ordinary moment or action and turn it into something sacred, starting with a profound act of acknowledgement, intention, presence. Maybe other words come to mind for you. I think of attention. It's the moment that I am not on autopilot. It's the difference between having a morning routine and a morning ritual. My coffee goes from being something that, yes, happens in the morning to I open up my curtains, I measure my beans and grind them, and then grab fresh water and sit in stillness while I watch the birds. And it turns this ordinary action into something that just carries a little bit more magic and meaning. Francis Weller has a lot to say about ritual as well. He's the author of The Wild Edge of Sorrow. And I wanted to read a few of his examples to you before I expand on some of his work mentioned within this grief ritual leadership training. He just has such a poetic way of speaking. Ritual is any gesture done singly or communally, done with emotion and intention that attempts to connect us with transpersonal energies for healing and transformation. Ritual signals to the psyche, acknowledge. I think this word can be so powerful of just acknowledging what is rather than turning away. Ritual assists in creating a breakthrough to sacred. He says ritual serves as a reparative function. It speaks the language of touch, dance, song, and emotions. It's older than words. I thought I'd sit with that since I'm using a lot of words right now. Rituals older than words. And because ritual can accomplish so much, he says it answers the questions of who we are, where we belong. This poem that was read earlier touches on this concept of belonging, a core human need, and what is sacred. So we can see how ritual just fits right into spaces within grief and loss, that it can invite something that feels meaningless, perhaps, and senseless, and be so very soothing, particularly in a world where we can feel like so much is out of our control. And this sorrow, too, stems, we know, outside of death loss. It can be the loss of an animal that we love, a part of the family, the adjustment to a new diagnosis, living with a chronic condition, moving, navigating change, spaces of liminality, or any other internal or external shift, however subtle. Ritual speaks to grief as being the long dark, inviting us to consider our needs within this space, along with what we bring. What resources do we already carry, and what can we create? So again, what resources do we carry within this long dark? What might we find, or what finds us? And what can we create as we sit with this altered reality? I sometimes refer to grief too, aside from this altered reality of being almost like the upside down, or there's this idea too within the literature of it shattering our assumptive world, all of the ways that we expect life to go, and something happens that feels out of order. There's layers within this, within grief, and ritual can help to just provide a compass at times when we feel so lost in the dark. I know within personal times of great grief, I've needed to slow things down. And I consider what I carry as a resource. I wonder what comes up for you as you consider what you carry within these spaces as a resource. Sometimes maybe it's a simple act of kindness. It's your way of being. It's the ability to maintain presence when so much feels impossible. Ritual can be that creation as well within this space, and provide the stillness and the turning toward the actual expression of one's internal experience, and be such necessary medicine for acknowledging whatever has transpired or is transpiring. I wanted to pause there briefly to see if this strikes a chord with anybody before I dive a little bit more into Francis Weller's training. Anything's coming up for you just yet?
I was thinking, Chandel, that, I love story. I love how it can help me see the world and understand it. But I feel like ritual in some ways invites me into becoming the stories that I tell myself. It allows me to enter into it in a different way. And so that's a huge value to me when I do that, is that I feel that the story becomes more personal, or becomes almost a companion that way.
Hmm. Yes. And how we can become a part of somebody else's story
Mhm.
and be so interwoven as well, by acknowledging whatever's happening with them and stepping into their stories and they ours.
Yeah. Whoops. We did things out of order. Go ahead.
Yes. Today, something absolutely wonderful happened, and it gives me a feeling of continuation. I had a darling grandmother, and I always make her recipe for apple pie, and I always draw her design for apple pie on the apple pie. But today I did something different. When I trimmed the crust, when I was a little girl, she would take the trimmings and she would do patty cake with them, um, put cinnamon and sugar on them, a little bit of butter, and bake it. And I said to myself, why can't I do that for me today? And I did. And of course, it's going to go on to the grandchildren, etc. And if I was really her, that little patty cake would have been in the shape of a bird or something wonderful. So, but it was just, it's this feeling of continuation.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Makes me think of so many different categories of ritual too. A ritual of continuation and the continued bonds that exist there as well, of connection. Within this training, Weller speaks to the cultural context around grief and loss, the architecture of ritual he's really big on. A lot of the culmination of this training was talking about how to create a ritual on a larger scale to host in a communal setting. He builds on what he calls the container, inviting us to consider, say, a beginning and an end, just as tonight we'll be together for an hour and a half. And so, how do we step into the space? How do we exist together? And then also, how do we exit? We're building this container together, one that's built upon certain principles or values, shared agreements, the concept of kindness, leading with that. Um, mm. In terms of the conceptualization that he expands on, he talks about always starting with the intention. So, what are we hoping to achieve as we step into ritual space? Do I need a moment of stillness? Am I looking for connection? Is this a ritual of remembrance? And so, always sitting with what is the intention here, and maybe who is my audience as well. And then the opening. So when I lead grief groups, my dear colleague and I will often light a candle and start with a poem. And I brought an example too of the kind of candle, maybe you've seen this. This is the Circle of Friends candle holder. And it's really lovely to see the shadow on the wall because it looks like it's just embracing the whole group. And that's the point too of the groups is in bringing people together and providing this kind of support. It connects as well for me of this archetype of circling and how we throughout time have come together and turned toward each other in a physical circle around a fire, around a human, around each other, and how we can lean into that for support. Cultivation. So Weller goes from intention to opening. How do we open? How do we use invocation? So he's really big on connecting with ancestors and drawing from that kind of energy through invocation. So considering who we might want to invite into this space. So this could be different depending on one's belief system. What I find powerful too is that he says ancestors are anyone or anything that has gone before us. So this can be a plant, an animal, or a human. And for folks who maybe have difficult relationships with some of their ancestors, that they can call in another who speaks to them. He moves into the idea of cultivation within rituals. What is it that we're hoping to accomplish? And this could be a micro ritual within the larger macro ritual. And also the idea of embodiment. So how do we drop from our heads into our bodies? And this can be through a variety of means. This can be through singing, breath work, drumming, dancing, and then demonstration. How do we incorporate the elements, perhaps? What again are going to be the ways of connection through water? Are we sharing a beverage, perhaps? Are we going to do a water and rock grief ritual? Will fire be used? It could just be, again, the lighting of a candle. And then again, closing. How do we step away and out of that threshold? Sometimes it's in reading the same poem twice. Sometimes at the beginning and then at the end. Sometimes it's in sitting with a line from a poem or piece of prose, and then maybe blowing out that candle. What I appreciated Weller drawing attention to is the idea of a ritual of return, to where even tonight, maybe anything that sits with you following the event is the continuation of this. And so for folks who maybe attend a ritual with friends or in a larger group setting, and then they come home engaging in a ritual of return, okay, I have stepped into the threshold of my home, across the threshold. What am I going to do as this energy sits with me, with what I've learned? Maybe going to wash one's hands and sit with a cup of tea and really ponder what came up for them. Weller speaks to this idea too that we don't live in ritual space. So again, the idea of the container and the stepping in and out of, we visit it and we return to ordinary life. As much as I'd love to sit with my cat and my coffee all day, I must step in and step out of that and return to ordinary life, which is also what gives ritual this significance and the personal meaning, because it's something that we step into with intention. It signals to the psyche that a holding space has been created. Rituals ground us and enrich our lives. They offer a path for healing, and most important, bring us together. It can be common connections through different kinds of rituals that I engage in with my sister versus a parent. And rituals aren't just for humankind. So Caitlin O'Connell is a behavioral ecologist and elephant scientist, and she writes about the individual and group behaviors that animals engage in that carry wisdom for our connection to self, others, and nature, to again consider that we are very much a part, not separate from nature. Makes me think of different rituals even that we can engage in with the animals that we have or that we can observe in the wild. Reflect on a childhood dog of mine that came as a preemie, and she used to fit inside of a Santa hat. And then as she grew, we started to take pictures of her wearing the Santa hat. And so this annual ritual. So we can think of, again, the daily rituals. What can infuse some meaning into today? And then also what happens perhaps on an annual scale. The concept again too of how ritual can be seen on those micro or macro levels. I just wanted to pause there again and see if anything else is coming up for folks. And considering how we work with that, the cultivation and ancestry within rituals, Weller invites individuals to sit with imagery, perhaps, and intuitive practices through meditation at times to see who comes forward. It might not be who we expect. I was sitting with an ancestor ritual that he invited the group to participate in, and I for certain thought it would be my dad who died 13 years ago. Of course, he's going to be the one that comes. But it was a great grandmother of mine. And interestingly enough, I'm going to Prague later this year. And it was my Czech great grandma, and she came with just so much excitement and energy for the trip that I'm about to take. And that was just really special to be able to commune, yes, in my mind, but to commune this way with somebody who's crossed over. As I mentioned, Weller wrote The Wild Edge of Sorrow, a book you're all probably familiar with. And what can be so just reparative in terms of ancestry rituals is that one of the gates of grief that Weller describes is of coming to terms with and sitting with and seeing the parts of us that have not known love. And that's a big gate, even just that word of sitting with that, and how there can be a reparative function to ritual, whether in drawing from this ancestry energy or elsewhere, of just sitting with all those parts of us that deserve to be seen and celebrated and honored. How can we honor them? How can we honor those parts of ourselves? And and sitting with that too. Part of what I do is grief work and therapy, and so there's parts work, which is the idea of sitting with, oh, there's a part of me that feels this way and a part of me that feels this way, and how can we draw from future us at times when it comes to making difficult decisions. And also there can be a reparative function in considering what kind of energy we want to embody and who is inspiring to us. And so from that reparative function standpoint, it could be a deceased TV show character that one really draws that inspiration from, a childhood pet, a queer elder, a social activist. Depending on one's belief system, just any one individual that we can connect with that really embodies this unconditional love, and in whatever form they exist. So we'll move into shortly talking about different ritual examples, and would love to hear from you as much as you feel comfortable participating. But I wanted to end on this note, in part by me and part by Weller. Something that I hope you carry with you tonight is that ritual is accessible. Ritual is alive. Ritual responds to the core need of being acknowledged, seen, and accepted and loved in all of our complexity and authenticity. Ritual provides continued connection to what was and what is, and can transform the ordinary into magic.
When you were talking, Chandela, I was reminded of a ritual that my family's practiced for quite a while now. Whenever the clan gets together, it's always around a meal, it seems like. That's how you get, especially the young folks, to show up, as if you're going to feed them. And before we sit down to eat, I was thinking about all the different things that you talked about through this training that you went through. And the archetype of circling, we form a circle. So you'll have many generations in this circle holding hands. And we recite a poem by Wendell Berry. And I wanted to share it with you because I just thought about it as you were talking. He writes, "I tremble with gratitude for my children and their children who take pleasure in one another. At our dinners together, the dead enter and pass among us in living love and in memory. And so the young are taught. And then we take a moment and we name those loved ones who have died, who are no longer with us, and remember them and acknowledge their presence and their ongoing participation in the clan. And it changes the meal. It's magical. Even these little kids who can't stay still all night pause and they look at wonder of all these adults reciting the same poem. And then it changes the mood when we sit down to eat and how we talk. It's something that I value, and I love to see my kids adopt that and take it on. And I look forward to it each time. So I just everything that you said, I realized how much is embodied in that one ritual that we share as a family.
I hear so much connection to tradition too, and revisiting that poem annually. I
Yeah.
am not familiar with that one by Wendell Berry. I was expecting to hear something else, and so that was really lovely. I wonder too about just the idea of tradition and how ritual and tradition are intertwined. And for some people prefer, right? We all know that there's some people prefer to be more in a time schedule, and some
Mhm.
people are a bit more easygoing when it comes to things. And but there can be this meeting place when it comes to tradition at times. And so I wonder about that, and if there's any examples from anybody related to what are those traditions.
I would just like to share a little bit. Chandel, you have created for me such a wide sense of what could be called ritual. Things that I never thought of as a ritual. But speaking of families getting together, when I was very little, we gathered Christmas Eve. Every Christmas Eve, it was a ritual. The food that we ate, how the evening evolved. And isn't it interesting that now, with my sister in Tucson, we carry on the same ritual, but in a modified way. And it has carried us through all these years, but I never thought of it as a ritual. So thank you for reframing that happening.
Thanks for sharing that. And is this your sister next to you?
No, but she takes part in the ritual ever since she's been in the family. She knows what it is.
And it's on Christmas Eve,
Yeah.
not Christmas Day. It was a Swedish tradition.
Mm.
We have the same food every Christmas Eve.
Mhm.
It's amazing. But anyway, you've really broadened my sense of what I would call a ritual in my life. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, there can be so much ritual surrounding food. What comes up time and again. And what a special discussion too to have so close to the holidays, whatever those holidays are.
I like too how you talked about the accessibility of ritual and that it can be at any point in an ordinary day. And it can be something that we do alone to recenter ourselves or to move ourselves beyond feeling, I feel sometimes stagnant, stuck, and it can help move me without actually going anywhere. And so I think I go on morning walks, and sometimes I'm on walks and all I'm doing is going through my to-do list for the day. And I accomplish a lot, so I'm not saying it's all that bad. But when I enter into it differently and I think about my feet touching the ground, I think about the animals around me. I think about how I feel and the coolness in the air, and I become more present at where I am, not what I'm going to be doing next. It changes the experience completely, and I can see it in a ritual way when I do it, as opposed to just passing time or getting other things done.
When I was thinking about this topic, of course, I think about the same things this time of year. We all have a lot of traditions and things that do become ritualistic and kind of ground us. And that connectedness, I like that word, Chandel. It connects generations, it connects new families, like when somebody joins your family, or in our case, our daughter gets married, you have to renegotiate your rituals, right? And you have to adopt some new ones, and then that becomes part of the mesh. And I think part of those things are really very cool. And I also think when I was thinking about rituals, I think of things that ground me. They take you back to something that's comfortable and that's predictable and that you can count on. And and I think especially when we're speaking about the space of life and loss, that can be really helpful as we try to move through that grief and um, and continue on the other side with the good parts that we want to make sure kids, grandkids, and everybody else remembers. And when I think about these things, I was thinking also some of the work that we do with, especially people with dementia and Alzheimer's, they go back to the five senses. And when I was thinking about this topic, I was thinking of the rituals with your five senses, right? Your sight, your sound, your taste, your smell, and your touch. And I think all of those things can be so important and meaningful and grounding. Um, so that was my thought.
What comes up for me as you say that is how we often incorporate the elements into ritual, and that can be so grounding too, because I have a candle behind me and it smells like balsam and pine, and that feels so grounding, and the taste of my tea. Thanks for that, Karen.
I love, Karen, how you talk about needing to adapt, or that rituals, we need to adapt them as we have new people coming in and taking part. And I can think of a couple times when I've been a little resentful when somebody wants me to change my ritual or tradition, and then thinking about how it is fun to see it evolve or become something new or more meaningful as we incorporate new people coming in, and getting over myself of needing to control things so much.
Right. It's also a way to carry those from our past with us, right? You
Mhm.
feel them.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so many similar words that pop up often as I was looking up definitions of ritual. There's intention, there's presence, there's memory, there's meaning. And I think too about the creation of altars, and also how so much beauty is woven into this, maybe in having fresh flowers or dried flowers, of having a candle, of having those cherished photos. And it's interesting too, just how those words repeat themselves and drives us closer to maybe a joint description, perhaps, that we might be able to come up with of what ritual means.
Did you want to move into the breakout rooms, do you think, Shando?
That would be fine. Yeah.
What would you like people to? So we're gonna invite you or into a breakout room with, I think, probably two other people, and we'll be there for roughly 10 minutes sharing. And could you sort of frame that for us a little bit, Shando?
Sure. And just kind of sitting with what came up for you, maybe talking about your description that you wrote at the beginning and what's standing out to you related to what's been discussed, and just in sharing what rituals that really mean a lot to you. And I think a warning will be given maybe before the groups close, sharing just whatever makes sense in the moment, giving each other a chance to have everybody speak, and we'll come back together for a larger discussion.
So before we send you into your groups, you'll have about 10 minutes. You'll get a 1-minute warning. If you're finished sharing, you can click the button to return to the main room. Otherwise, you can just stay in and you'll magically transport back after the 1 minute has finished. And then I just want to let everyone know the recording will not take place during the breakout session, so you don't have to worry about what you say in your group being recorded. It will not happen in the breakout rooms. So please feel free to show your faces and share freely. And then in about 10 minutes, we'll all come back together. So I will go ahead and send you all to your rooms.
So does anyone feel like they would like to share what's come up for them, either earlier in the conversation or what came up for you during the breakout times? Julie, did you want to begin?
Sure. I just wanted to thank, we got whisked back on the magic carpet before I was able to thank my breakout room friends for sharing. And I said that what came up for me was one of my favorite rituals is sitting out back under my juniper trees. I have a lounge chair. In the house, my dogs aren't allowed on the furniture, but out there we snuggle. And I have a hummingbird feeder. And so we just watch the hummingbirds and we listen to all the birds. And there was something that Karen said that kind of transported me back to my childhood, that this is in fact something I've done throughout my life, from being even a very small child when I lived up in Prescott, that and even when I was in California, like throughout my life, I've always had this thing of sitting out back in the sunshine, probably not when it's really cold, because that's not my favorite time, my favorite temperature, but listening to birds, watching nature. And so it was sort of fun to realize that I have continued that, but I never realized it till tonight, that that's kind of been a theme throughout my life.
And
Like
anyone
that
can
sense
just,
of return.
I'm sorry, say that again, Shando.
I was just reflecting on the sense of return that comes with that.
Yeah. One of the things that we talked about in the breakout room was the feeling of connection to those who are no longer with us. and how important that is in our lives and in meaning making and in our understanding of our place in life and in the world as well. B, please.
Um, I have had one difficult relationship throughout my life, and the person has passed away. And my ritual is taking one of the nicest things that she ever did and repeating that every year. She used to decorate instead of just in the house, a holiday tree, there would be a tree outside for the birds. And there would be apple slices with peanut butter and seeds on it. And I've kept that up as a recognition of the one of the most positive aspects of her. Her life was a lot of struggle.
We spoke about the importance of creating new ritual. Sometimes we follow what our families did for umpteen amount of years, but depending on the situations we are in, I think we have to create our own new rituals, and the importance of spirituality, in our rituals as well.
Hi, Sarani. Love that.
I love the ideas of creative expression in rituals too, and how working with our hands or moving our bodies, how that can connect us in ways that get us out of just our head. And I'm big on words, but it's always nice to move out of that space. And I know Sarani's is someone who embraces the creative arts expressions in many different ways.
I love that, and I've experienced the sense of freeing yourself from some issues that you may have had through dance movement. And it's amazing, and it's actually a ritual performance at that time, so it's wonderful for the soul.
I think one of the things that David, when we were starting to talk about this topic, and one of the things that came to mind to me was from a different perspective, but it was the importance of ritual throughout your life, where no matter where you live or where you move to, those of us who move around, whether it's within the US or internationally, some of those things, like especially food, back to food again, that becomes really a part that makes it seem like home. But I also think when we're trying to help people through difficult times and whatnot, it behooves us to find out what was important to them, or what are they missing. I mean, sometimes people can't figure out how to do it for themselves, but maybe we could. And so one of the most touching things, I had two little stories about that. Both are end of life stories, but one was a gentleman who was here, and he was what he would say, me and my family are all from academia. And they were around the world doing academia, and they had been all split up as a family. And in fact, even the husband and wife had been split up because she didn't want to move for that. And so his end of life time came, and all of these people came from around the world and were with him and made some amends. There were some amends to be made. And what really brought them all together was this one dish that the daughter made. And they had a really good day. And so I think about how powerful that was, and how meaningful that was and how helpful that was to all of them to be able to move forward from that. So that's one thought. And then I had a personal one with my mother-in-law. She was originally from India and she came to live with us for the last 7 years of her life. And so we always tried to make everything seem like home, and keep the important things and make those things happen for her. But with her passing, I learned a lot that I didn't necessarily know about what would be important and how would we emulate those things here in America. And what I would say is, as an end user, you ask and say, this is what they would do. Can you help us do something like this that would at least make it feel like we had honored that tradition? And so as an instance, the hospice nurse came back and helped me completely change her clothes, with a complete outfit that was fully stitched. They don't have zippers in them, so you can imagine how hard that was. She happily came back out and did that. And then, a tradition about the gentleman in the house need to lead the body out of the house. So the funeral home, absolutely, here, we'll put it on this, they can do this. And then, of course, the last really big one was, in India, they of course do the burning of the body, literally. And so with that, the oldest son is supposed to light the fire, which to me sounded absolutely, oh, I don't know, heart-wrenching. But the place that we went, of course, you can't have an open fire, but they did let him light this furnace and took us back to that space and let them do that. So my point in that is, as you think about what rituals are important to you, ask for them. Even if you can't do it yourself anymore, people will help you with that, and it can be really a great experience. And if we are having trouble really connecting with people, I think rituals are a great way to learn about them and help them along their journey. So thanks for letting me share that.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Shandell, I would like to ask you an easy question. It's easy for me to ask the question. I don't know about the answer. But of all the things that we share this evening about ritual, do you have a sense of a few things that are most important in terms of rituals? It can be not just one thing, but a few things that are most important. Your sense of that?
What comes up for me in hearing that is that it's just so very personal. Ritual can be so personal. And so I might say that leading with intuition and really listening to what makes sense in the moment. What makes sense in the moment for me might not make sense for someone I'm with. And so maybe I'll give a personal example. I lost my dad 13 years ago, unexpectedly and tragically. And so as my mom and sisters and I have mourned him, how we come together and engage in ritual, perhaps as it pertains to food, even just in planning his memorial service so long ago, how we remember him on important days, Father's Day, his death anniversary, his birthday, the holidays. What might make sense for me might not make sense for my mom or my sisters, but how we can create space and honor each other and what those needs are, but getting really clear on by listening to our bodies on what makes sense, what could personalize this in a way and infuse some meaning. And that might be just pertaining to a ritual of remembrance. But I might say what feels most important is just leading with one's instinct.
Thank you for your wisdom.
I think we're all experts here.
We thought that we would close our time with intention as well. And I will read the poem that brought us into this space together that Karen shared earlier. And if you feel comfortable, I invite you to place your hands over your heart. And if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes and just allow these words to wash over us.
Hey, David,
Yes.
can you give the name of the poem?
Yes. For when we greet each other.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I want a new ritual for when we meet each other, strangers or beloveds, friends or rivals, elders or children. It begins by holding each other's eyes the way we behold sunrises or the first cherry blossoms, which is to say, we assume we'll find beauty there. And perhaps some display of open hands, a gesture with palms up that suggests both I offer myself to you and I receive you. There should be a quiet moment in which we hear each other breathe, knowing it's the sound of the ocean inside us. If there are words at all, let them be formed mostly of vowels, so that they're heard more as a song than as spitting, more like a river current and less like throwing stones. Words that mean something like, I do not know what you carry, but in this moment, I will help you carry it. Or something like, everything depends on us treating each other well. And if we said it enough, perhaps we'd believe it. And if we believed it enough, perhaps we'd live it, treating every other human like someone who holds our very existence in their hands, like someone whose life has been given us to serve, even if it's only to walk together safely down a street, hold a door, pass the salt, share a sunset, offer a smile, and say with our actions, you belong. Amen. Thank you all so much for this time together. Thank you, Karen and Chandel, for all that you brought to our time together and that we hold in our hearts. But don't leave right now, folks. Don't go signing off, because we have a few other things to tell you about that you're going to be interested in. Okay. And I think Jennifer is going to share her screen again. Look at that magic. So, yes, this is our last session of 2025, but we already have 2026 planned to a large degree, and we're very excited about it. It's entitled Navigating the Journey, Conversations on Death and Dying. And we will kick off this session, this series, in January on the 15th. Registration pages are open, and we have Dr. Nadia Tremonti, who is a pediatric palliative care physician out of Detroit. And she did a documentary on called Palliative, I think about 4 years ago. It was also, it's about 35 minutes. They did a shorter version that some of you may have seen through the New York Times op docs called Dying in Your Mother's Arms. But this is going to be a viewing of the documentary and then an amazing conversation with Dr. Tremonti and all of her experiences about what it means to find meaning and purpose and hope and love as we navigate chronic and serious illness in our lives and with our loved ones, and what it means to, with intention, recognize our mortality and the goodbye that's coming. So please go on to our website and register. It's going to be a wonderful conversation, and it's a fantastic documentary. And then in February on the 19th, Dr. Sunita Puri will be with us, and she wrote a book called That Good Night, Life in Medicine in the 11th Hour. She is an amazing writer and speaker. She is also a palliative care physician, and she was raised within the Hindu tradition, and she very much brings the importance of spirituality and faith and belief into the conversations with her patients and their loved ones as they deal with serious and chronic illness and raise the questions of mortality as well. Dr. Tremonti, I was talking to her earlier this week, and she said, all these things that were taught in medical school about what to say to patients and how to help them understand their diagnoses and prognosis. She said, what really is important in these times when life is short are questions of faith and spirituality and belief for patients. And if doctors can't enter into those conversations, there's no way that we can help in the healing process during that time. So Dr. Sunita Puri will help us in those conversations and understanding what that looks like in her practice. And then in March on the 19th, Imam Jamal Rahman, who has been with us in the past, he is out of Seattle. He will be offering a time together. He is a Muslim, Sufi, and interfaith human being who he will be talking about life lessons gleaned from grief and loss. And so he is a joy to talk with. And he will offer a presentation and then help facilitate a conversation with all of us. So please go onto our website, register for these events. They will be fantastic. We have other surprises coming up in April and May and June that are planned out as well. And we'll tell you all about those when you join us in January.
So right about now, or in just a couple of minutes, you're going to get an email with a link to our survey. If you would please give us your feedback on tonight's session, anything that you felt was a strength or a weakness about tonight's presentation, we want to hear it. We read everyone's feedback, and so it really does mean a lot to us for you to submit those for us. And then just a few ways to donate. As you mentioned, we're so grateful for the people who have donated throughout the year to our series. If we just want to give up some other opportunities that you can donate, we partner with a few shopping programs such as Walmart Spark Good, Fry's VIP Rewards, and shopraise.com. So when you're thinking about doing your holiday shopping, you can also choose Roots and Roads as your charity of choice. And then if you're in Arizona, we have the Arizona Charitable Tax Credit that you can donate to Roots and Roads, and we are a qualified charitable tax organization, so that will qualify for a dollar for dollar tax credit on your Arizona state taxes. So please keep us in mind as tax time rolls around. And then just a little plug here, kind of going off script a little bit, but I just want to thank Julie and David. At the beginning of this series, I had lost my sister during that time, and they were so gracious enough to dedicate the series to my sister Monica. And so every month as we've gathered, I've been in so much community with you all as we talked about grief and rituals. And so I'm just grateful. And as it comes to a close and as your 1 year anniversary draws on, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody.
I love you, Jennifer. And we want to wish all of you the happiest holidays. You are our family, and we realize the holidays bring joy, but they also bring grief. So be gentle with yourselves, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year.